Good day, everyone. In today's demonstration, we're going to be talking about territory mapping in Simple GIS Client. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the new territory mapping project template available in Simple GIS Client version 14. To begin, whenever you start a new project and you come up to the new project screen where you list all of the available project templates, the project template we're going to be talking about today is right here. If you can see where my mouse is kind of circling around this icon, and it's called the territory mapping template. If I click on it, you'll get the full description. And this project template will provide step-by-step guidance for users wanting to create territories in Simple GIS. So to begin, to create the new project, you would double click on this icon. This will begin the process of Simple GIS creating a new empty project. And the first thing it's going to do is check to see if you have the Simple Territory Mapper plugin installed. So this project template does require users to have the Simple Territory Mapper plugin installed, which, if you're not familiar, plugins are just extensions to the core Simple GIS client application to provide extended functionality. And this particular plugin, it does have a separate license fee. It's a very modest license fee. At the time of this recording is $35 per license, and that is simply a one-time charge, and you're free to use it from that point forward. And so there's no annual subscription or no recurring fees, anything like that. If you have not installed the Simple Territory Mapper plugin, you can actually do it right here from within this project wizard, just by simply clicking on this Install Simple Territory Mapper plugin. I should note also is that the plugin does come with a free 30-day evaluation period, so you can try it out and free to use it for a full 30 days, and then decide if you don't like it, then you're certainly under no obligation to purchase. Or if you do, it's a simple matter of purchasing the license. So I'm going to go ahead and install it since I don't have it installed on this machine. So I'll click on Install Simple Territory Mapper plugin. It'll go through a quick download. So it'll actually download the installer. And then once this is downloaded, it's actually going to launch the installer. And now you just go step-by-step guidance to actually install the plugin. So select yes, I will accept the agreement, leave the default installation folder, and allow it to proceed through its installation process. And then once it's finished, I'll click the finish button. And now I'm back at my project template and ready to proceed to the next step. So the next step is just to specify a base map layer. If I want a base map background into my map, as you can currently see, it's just empty. I have no layers loaded. So this will allow you to add any pre-configured base maps in Simple GIS. Of course, if you use Simple GIS, you know you can add whatever layers you want into here, but this is just for a convenience. If you want to use any of the pre-configured base maps, you can click on Add Base Map Layer. For today's demonstration, I'm going to use the OpenStreetMap base map, so I'm just going to double click on that tile. I see that it has added the new layer to my map, and I see it in my background here. So now the first step I need to do is to create my base layer for my territories. And so the base territory layer is just kind of the foundational layer that will be used to build your territories from. So the base territory will contain the base geometry or boundaries that you want to use to create your territory assignments from. And it's from these base geometries or boundaries that you'll be able to assign one or more of these to a person or to a single person. So I'm going to select Create Base Territory Layer. And the very first thing I need to do is, in this new dialog box, is to specify an output for my new shapefile that's going to hold my base territory boundaries. And so to do that, I'm going to click on this button with the open folder icon. And now I'll just navigate to the folder where I want to store my new shapefile and assign it a new name, a new file name. So I'm going to call this my state base boundaries. I'll click save. And now I see that it has populated the full path and file name for my new shapefile. Now, very important, I need to also specify the desired geometry for my base boundaries. So this could be zip code boundaries, it could be school districts, county boundaries, or state boundaries. So in our case, it's going to be state boundaries. And next I have an option, actually a few options. I can have data that I have contained in an external spreadsheet or table. I could append that data to my new territory boundaries. So this could be any information like sales data, customers, counts, anything like that. Other option you have is I can append data from the U.S. Census demographic data to my territory boundaries. Or I could do neither of these and just go ahead and create my territory boundaries. I should note also that these first two options aren't mutually exclusive, so I can append both data from an external spreadsheet as well as data from U.S. Census demographic data. But if I have data that's contained in a spreadsheet or an external database table that I would like to append, I need to do that step first. And so for today's demonstration, I actually have some data in a spreadsheet, just some sample data that I'm going to append to my territory boundaries. So I'm going to select yes, next. I have an external spreadsheet or table I would like to append. And then I'll get a new dialog box. And then the very first thing I need to do is to select the external table that I'm wanting to append data from. So again, this could be file-based data, such as an Excel spreadsheet, CSV file, DBase table, or it could actually be connecting to an ODBC data source and selecting a data table from an external database. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is click on this button that has this database icon with a magnifying glass over it. I'll get a new dialog box that comes up that gives me some options to select the data source. If I'm connecting or wanting to import data from a file-based data source, then I need to select this first tab option for data table. And for your file name, I'm going to click on this button with the open folder icon to bring up a file selection dialog box. And I would just need to navigate to the folder and select the file name of the data that I'm wanting to import. So in my case, the sample data I have is the state sales data Excel spreadsheet. So I'll double click on that and then I'll simply click apply. And now, since it is an Excel spreadsheet, I need to select the worksheet that contains the data I'm wanting to import. So all my data is on sheet 1. And I'll click apply. And then the next thing it wants to do is know, does the first row of data contain column headings or field names? So it just needs to know that if that's actual data or is it your column headings or field names. So in my case it does, so I'm going to select yes. And if I was to actually look at the spreadsheet data, I actually have it here. So this is the spreadsheet that I'm importing here. And you see all my data is on this sheet 1. And I do have these column headings here. I have state USPS, which has a state abbreviation. I have the name of the state fully spelled out. And then I have the sales data here, which is just some made up data that I plugged in here. And so this is the data I'm going to be importing. And since my base territory boundaries is based on states, I need to have a key field in the data that I'm wanting to append that tells it what state each row of data goes to. So in my case, it's this STUSPS field, which has the state abbreviation. And so this just tells you, for instance, as it's importing for each row of data, what state this data belongs to. So it sees right here that this row, this first row of data here that I'm highlighting belongs to West Virginia. And so if I was to go back, I see that it pulled in, these are the available fields out of my spreadsheet. which is what I had. And if I look and I can see that this STUSPS, remember, is what I said was my key field. And so what I need to do is specify this is the field that contains the state information for each row of data. And so I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to click this button with the double arrows pointing to the right to move this field here into my state field. It's just like so. Now again, I'm only doing this because my boundary layer I had selected was based upon state boundary geometry. If I had selected zip code geometry, for example, then I would need to have a column here that would specify the zip code for each row of data. So I would need to select that field and move it to the zip code field. And likewise for school district or county field. And as you see, I've done this for my spreadsheet data, and now I still have the option to append U.S. Census demographic data to my territory boundaries if I so choose. Or I could just go ahead and create my territory boundaries just with this data that I'm appending. I am going to go ahead for demonstration purposes, and I'll select to append demographic data. So I'll click on this button. And next I'll get this box where I can select one of the predefined queries from Simple GIS that contains some demographic data to append. All of this data is based upon the American Community Survey 5-year data set from the U.S. Census Bureau. If these, like I said, are predefined queries that I can select that's already been created, I can create my own queries based upon that American Community Survey 5-year data set by going to the Define New Query tab, selecting the categories and tables and fields that I want to append, and then saving that query. I'm not going to cover that in this demonstration. There are some other video tutorials as well as the user manual that covers this in more detail. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go back to my predefined demographic queries, and I'm just going to leave it selected to this total population query. And so then I'll proceed to the final step, which is specify the symbols and to create my new base territory boundary layer. And as I do that, I just need to specify what type of legend I want to assign to my new layer. Simple legend being that all features will have the same symbol type, or I can do a gradient legend where I can assign different color gradients based upon values in a particular field. So for instance, if I selected gradient, I could do a gradient based upon the sales data that I'm importing from my spreadsheet, or I could do it on total population based on data I'm appending from the U.S. Census Bureau. So for this, I'm going to use my sales data, and now I can select the symbol that I want to use as my color base. So if I click on this, this is the symbol that's currently selected. It has kind of a red color base to it. I can select any of these symbols to use them as the base, and then it would use a color gradient based upon the background color in these symbols. I'm going to leave it selected to the default, and then I just need to specify the number of breaks. So this is the number of how many breaks in my color gradient that I want. And so I'm going to bump this up to 6. And I'll go ahead. My final step is to generate my territories base layer. And I'll see the progress here in the lower left corner of my dialog box. And then once it's finished, I see that it has added a new layer to my map. And if I just kind of scoot this dialog box over a little, you see that this data has been added to my map with that color gradient. So now my next step is to create a layer that's going to hold my territory assignments. Very similar to when we created the base territories. If I have a spreadsheet, for example, that already has states assigned to certain salespeople, just as an example, I could use that to generate my territory assignments layer. So it could read that, and based upon the states assigned to specific individuals, it would create your assignments layer that you could then change and modify assignments and tweak as necessary. Or if you just wanted to create a new empty territory assignments layer and you're going to start creating it from scratch, you could do that by clicking the second option that says create new empty territory assignments layer. So that's the option I'm going to choose today for this demonstration. And so you'll get a new dialog box when you select that. What you need to do is just select your base layer, which is the layer we just created, which is a state boundaries. That just tells Simple GIS and makes the assignment that this new territory layer that we're creating is based upon these state-based boundaries, and that's what it's going to be using, or it will use, to help you create your territories. And then you just need to specify the output for your new territory assignments. And so once again, very similar to before, we're going to click on this button with the open folder icon to create our new assignments layer. I'm just going to call it state territories. So really, at the end of this, you're going to have two layers. You're going to have your base layer that is what you're going to be using to build your territories, and then you're going to have your assignments layer, which is the actual culmination of the base geographies that you've selected to assign to specific individuals. And this should become clear in a few minutes here. So I don't have to fill out the geography because that was already defined with my state-based boundaries, so it knows what that geography key is. It's using that state USPS field, which has the state abbreviation. So don't have to worry with that. We're just going to create our new assignments layer. We'll click apply, and that has now added that to my map. It's just a new layer, and it is empty. And if we look at it, I don't have anything on here yet because I haven't created any territories. So now I can just go to manage my territories. And this is going to bring up the manage territory assignments dialog box. So it's at this box now that I can start creating my territories. So let me just zoom in here to the lower 48s. And so as we take a look and we're looking at this, we can see that we have all of these base boundaries, and they're color coded based upon the sales data that we appended from our Excel spreadsheet. And so now to create new territories, for example, first thing I need to do is select the territory layer that I'm wanting to create territories for. So if you had multiple base boundaries in this particular map, you would see multiple layers listed here, and you would just need to select which one that you're wanting to create territories for at the moment. So I only have the single one, which is the state territory, so that's my new territories layer. And now I need to select a balancing field. And what this is if you wanted to try and balance your territories based upon some value. So for instance, looking at our sales data or looking at population, we could try and achieve a balance between the states that's being assigned to different salespeople, for example. So I'm going to select sales. And now what I need to do, since I don't have any territories really created yet, I can create a new territory by selecting areas on the map. So I'm going to click on this button, and then I can just draw a box on the map to highlight certain areas. And as I do, you'll see it'll select those states, and it will actually list the total based, because we selected sales. So what it's doing is displaying the total cumulative value of the sales of all the states we've selected. So in this case, it's 2.6 million. And now we can see, does this kind of align with our target or not? So the other thing we could do is enter a balanced target. So that would be our target. Let's say that we wanted to create territories that had roughly 2.1 million of sales in each territory. And so that's going to be our balanced target. So you can see here we've over selected a little. So I can maybe tweak this a little bit. Maybe let's select those 4 to start with, or 3, I'm sorry. And we're at 1.47 million. So let's go ahead and assign that. So to assign that to an individual or someone, we would come down and click on the new territory now that we have these states selected. So I'll click new territory, and let's say I'm going to assign these territories to John. And now I see that it has created this new territory is indicated by this new color, and I see that it added this in the legend here on my layer for John. And currently his territories total up to 1.47 million. So maybe we need to add a little more to his territory. So what I could do is I could select another area here. And I see that in Colorado, I had 563,000 in sales. So I would know if I added that to John, I'd be getting close to my balance target of 2.1 million. And so what I could do is to assign this territory to John, I would need to first select John from my territory because I now have him in the list. I've created his territory. And what I would need to do is select add to selected territory. And now I've added that to John, and I see that I'm at 1.99 million. So I'm pretty close at that point. So now let's select some other areas. So maybe we wanted to select these 3 states, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and we see that we only have 524,000, but we'll start with that sales in these areas, and we're going to create a new territory from them. And we'll assign this to Jane. And now we see that it's created a new territory for Jane. It's added, of course, it's assigned another color for her and assigned her value in the legend here. And here is her total sales compared to John's. And then this black line, since we now have more than one territory, that represents our balance target that we've entered here. So we see that John is pretty close, but we need to add some to Jane. So we'll go through and maybe we'll add a few more. Let's select California here. So all I did is clicked on select areas, clicked on California. And now from the territory list here, I'm going to select Jane, and I'm going to select add to selected territory. And that added a little bit, wasn't a lot there. So let's maybe try and select Montana here. Let's see what it adds. So Montana would add another 548,000 on top of the 584 that Jane already has assigned. So that's getting a little bit, but we need more than that. So I'm going to go back to select areas, and let's select Montana and Wyoming. And we see that would add about 979,000 in sales on top of the nearly 600 she already has. So that should be getting pretty close. So again, while I have Jane selected, I'm going to click add to selected territory. And I see that I have gotten a lot closer, but I still need to add a little bit more to Jane here. So this is just kind of showing the process. So now I can manage these assignments. Now, once you have everything created, you can then export the territories. And this would allow you to export these assignments as an Excel spreadsheet. So if I was to click on export territories, and if I was to go to a folder location and then just go to a file name and enter in a file name. Well, try. And click save. It would actually save this as an Excel spreadsheet that I could then open. Browse, go to that folder location. And select my territory assignments here. And I actually see what it would have outputted. Blow this up a little bit. Here's the state, the abbreviation of the state that's being assigned and who's it been assigned to. And so it exports all of those assignments out for you into a spreadsheet that then you can take and do what you need to with that information. So again, just a way that you can export. Now, if I was to close this, I can now save this project file. Just do a file, save project as, since I haven't named it already. You'll get a file dialog box, and then you can save it to whatever file name you'd like. And then instead of going through and creating a new project using the project template, you would just simply go and open this project file again. So since you'd already have this project saved, and since you have the plugin installed, it's added a set of menu options into your project located under the geoprocessing menu called Simple Territory Mapping. And so here is all of those menu options that the project template just guided us through. So like creating a territory base layer, of course you would not need to do that unless you were just wanting to create a new base layer. Same thing, you would not need to create a new territory assignments layer unless you just wanted to. But what you could do is just come back to manage your territory assignments. And that would bring back this dialog box that you could select, and from here you could begin to manage your territory assignments, creating new assignments, removing, adding to whatever you need it to do. Or if you decided that instead of sales data you were trying to balance, let's say you wanted to balance total population, and now you see there's a huge discrepancy between Jane and John just because of the different values. Now we're using population of the states rather than sales data. So that concludes this tutorial. If you found this useful, hopefully you did, please just click on the subscribe button below in this video. That will subscribe you to our set of video demonstrations and tutorials for Simple GIS Client. I also encourage you to visit our website. That is simplegissoftware.com. It's all one word, and the URL is included in the description of this video as well. Again, I hope this was useful, and thank you for your time.